I'm going to be honest, I wasn't that much of a Warhammer fan until last year, so I am pretty new to the franchise of Warhammer and specifically 40k. My first interaction with Warhammer was in 2020 when this meme was popular. You might have not seen it, it only has a couple of views. When I saw this, I had a lot of questions. What is Chaos? Who are Psychers? And who are these big guys? Then, in 2021, I started watching some lore videos, but I still had some questions. Who are the Chaos Gods? How does space magic work? How many Space Marine chapters are there? Finally, in late 2022, so about 2 to 3 months ago, I started watching lore videos on a daily basis. And now I have even more questions. One of those questions being, who are the Grey Knights? Yes? Yep, I did, so do you have an answer? So why did I talk about my history with Warhammer? Well, it's because when I first discovered it, Warhammer 40k seemed like a generic sci-fi universe. I know it sounds really dumb to me now, but listen for a sec. Dispensable soldiers, super soldiers, ships taking shortcuts through another dimension, beings beyond comprehension, and so on. If 40k has all of these genre-defining tropes, then why is Warhammer 40k different? Well, you could probably list 100 reasons, but I'll list some of the main ones. Before I list some of the reasons though, I really hate doing this, but I really want to say that if you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. The first reason I'll be giving is uniqueness. I think one of the best examples of uniqueness is space travel. I'll start explaining this by firstly explaining the example I mentioned before, when comparing Warhammer to other series. In Star Wars, ships take a shortcut through an alternate dimension known as hyperspace. This dimension is accessed by traveling at or faster than the speed of light. The most dangerous thing that can happen here is if your spaceship crashes into another spaceship, or a Star Weird entering your spaceship, though this is legends only. Navigating hyperspace requires skill, but a person with enough training can still do it. In Warhammer, ships take a shortcut through an alternate dimension known as the Immaterium, or simply the Warp, which is basically a sea of pure psychic energy, chaos, magic, souls, and hell. Every living, remotely smart being's soul is located in the Warp. Oh, and as you might have guessed, those souls aren't safe because they are vulnerable to warp entities. What are warp entities? Warp entities are basically entities of pure psychic energy that feast on souls. Hearing this, the first question that might come to your mind is, obviously, how did they get formed? Whose souls do they prefer eating? The answer? People who can use sorceries. Wait, are you a psyker? Well, tough fucking luck, because your soul will stand out more than a Minecraft beacon, making your soul more appealing to warp entities. I think it's about time that I started talking about how this is related to space travel at all. Before I start explaining, I want to apologize to any Warhammer fan because I'm not explaining all of this. Basically, there's this thing called the Astronomical. What is the Astronomical? It is the navigation system humanity uses to navigate the warp. Without it, humanity wouldn't be able to navigate the warp at all. To keep this system working, the Imperium, valuing human lives as always, sacrifices 1,000 psychers per day. Getting to the part where ships enter the Immaterium, they enter by using this thing called a warp drive. To activate the warp drive and not die instantly, they need to find some place where they can enter the warp relatively safely, which is called a Mandeville point. Upon entering the warp, a ship activates its Geller field, which is essentially a shield that prevents warp entities and demons from killing you the moment you enter the warp. Oh, right, I forgot to mention demons. Yes, demons do, in fact, exist, and they are ruled by 4 chaos gods. Khorne, Nurgle, Slanesh, and Tzeentch. Tzeentch. I think it's Tzeentch. These 4 gods have their own domains, which are all located in a special area of the warp known as the Realm of Chaos. Getting back to the ship part, if the Geller field works, then congrats, you can travel safely for some time. Some being the keyword here. From this example, you have probably understood that this isn't your cliche sci-fi space universe. Moving on, I think that this topic of uniqueness also ties in with the next example, the Grimdark genre of Warhammer. Grimdark is, in my opinion, best described by Adam Roberts, a British writer. He described Grimdark as a fiction where nobody is honorable and might is right, which is pretty close. Also, according to him, Grimdark is the anti-Tolkien approach to writing fantasy. For example, in Lord of the Rings, there is hope, and the story centers around the main cast going on this epic journey to defeat Sauron, the Dark Lord. If this story took place in the 40k universe, half of the cast would brutally die at Helm's Deep, Saruman would nuke Orthanc, the tower he is seen in, and Frodo would have half of his body replaced by mechanical parts before going on to burn the ring while fighting a dreadnought containing Sauron's consciousness. This shouldn't be surprising, since the word Grimdark actually comes from Warhammer. If you go onto the wiki page for Grimdark, it says, the term is inspired by the tagline of the tabletop strategy game Warhammer 40k. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Warhammer's grimdark aspect comes from the universe being in a dark age. I'll give 2 examples of this. The guardsmen of the Imperium are the manifestation of the word expendable. Guardsmen aren't heroes like in other universes, almost all of them will die, and the ones that don't will just get picked up and put into another war. The Eldars, or the Eldari, are also a good example, I think. They were extremely powerful in the 30th millennium. They were the power in the galaxy. The Eldar, of course, having all the power, were like, okay, so there's Khorne, the god of blood, Nurgle, the god of decay, and Tzeentch, the god of magic, right? So there are only 3 gods, and none of them have anything to do with pleasure or excess pride, right? So we can do whatever we want? And to this question, Slanesh probably said something along the lines of sub and destroyed their empire. Yes, they birthed the Chaos God from their pride and pleasure-centric lifestyle alone. Now that is the Eldari grind set. So from these 2 examples, we can conclude that the Grimdark aspect of 40k comes from hopelessness. The last example I'll give as to why 40k is different is the sheer number of content. The Horus Heresy, a single event in the Warhammer 40k universe, has 64 books written about it. 64! And if you look at the Steam page of Warhammer, there are a lot of games. Comparing this to something like Halo, which is one of my favorite game series, Halo has 20 books and 16 games, 8 of which are spin-offs. Warhammer has over 350 books, and according to this Kotaku article, I found 65 games released or announced since 2014, which is insane. Apart from books and digital media, Games Workshop is still releasing new sets for the Warhammer 40k tabletop game. So, in conclusion, Warhammer 40k is different because of many reasons, mainly its uniqueness and grimdark aspect. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.